The FIA has just released hidden footage from a Las Vegas inspection room, and this video is so precise and so damaging that it has the power to collapse McLaren's entire defense before the new investigation even begins. The official readings captured on camera show Oscar Piastri's plank falling to 8.74 millimeters and Lando Norris registering 8.88 each value, confirmed several times with instruments calibrated to 1,000th of a millimeter and repeated in front of McLaren staff with identical results every single time. The hidden footage also shows the inspectors explaining that both cars carry the same uniform erosion pattern across all reference points, a detail that removes every argument about chance or impact and points instead to a structural decision inside McLaren that the team cannot easily explain. And before I reveal why this new footage is the most devastating evidence the FIA has released so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the next clips the FIA is preparing to publish are even more dramatic and could reshape the final chapters of the 2025 season. The situation surrounding the Las Vegas Grand Prix shifted dramatically the moment the FIA released the hidden inspection footage that captured every detail of the post-race evaluation of the McLaren cars. The video showed officials preparing calibrated tools and aligning the measuring blocks with extreme care before beginning the plank tests. Every movement in the footage was deliberate and every reading was recorded with quiet precision. As the inspectors worked through the first measurements, the tension in the room increased because the officials appeared fully aware that the readings they were about to collect could decide the legitimacy of an entire race result. The footage presented a scientific environment where accuracy replaced any form of interpretation. The footage became even more compelling when the FIA began documenting the values taken from Oscar Piastri's car. The inspectors confirmed measurements as low as 8.74 millimeters and repeated the test multiple times with identical outcomes. The recording captured the faces of McLaren engineers as they watched each value appear with total consistency. What made this moment so important was how the readings showed no fluctuation. They stayed stable across each repetition, which removed any possibility of randomness. This sequence demonstrated that the floor had not dipped occasionally, but had run below the legal limit throughout the event. The tension intensified further when the inspectors moved to Lando Norris's car. The footage revealed the exact same procedure and exact same calm explanations from the FIA officials. The measurements recorded for Norris reached 8.88 millimeters, and again the numbers repeated perfectly each time the test was performed. The video showed McLaren staff leaning closer to the monitors as if hoping to see any variation that could weaken the conclusion. Instead, every value remained steady, and every visual cue from the inspectors reinforced that the findings were definitive. This consistency immediately elevated the significance of the case, because identical erosion across two cars is rarely the result of chance. The footage also captured the moment when the FIA explained why these readings were taken so seriously. Officials pointed out that the wear pattern on both planks followed a smooth uniform line from front to rear. This type of erosion does not occur when a car hits a curb too aggressively or when it suffers an isolated incident on track. It occurs when a vehicle runs at a ride height that is too low for a prolonged period of time. The video documented the explanation clearly, and the engineers present were seen taking notes while listening to the reasoning. This visual confirmation made it impossible for the team to attribute the breach to a single unpredictable moment during the race. A particularly revealing segment of the footage showed the FIA demonstrating the repeatability of their measurements. The inspectors reset their instruments and repositioned the gauge several times while narrating each step with methodical clarity. Every repetition produced the same result on both McLaren cars. This moment was crucial because it showed that the process was not only precise, but fully transparent. McLaren engineers were visibly attentive, but unable to identify any procedural weakness. The footage made it clear that the FIA had documented these steps intentionally, knowing that the evidence would undergo scrutiny. The controlled environment and the stable values strengthened the authority of the findings. The final minutes of the footage delivered the most impactful moment. The FIA concluded the session by informing McLaren that both cars had failed the inspection according to the exact measurements collected and verified. The video showed the immediate stillness inside the room as the team processed the implications. This silence carried more weight than any verbal reaction because it revealed a collective understanding that the case was no longer about interpretation, but about physical reality. The footage ended with the FIA emphasizing that the uniformity across both cars indicated a structural issue in the setup rather than a random event. That comment is what transformed the Las Vegas incident into a deepening investigation that now threatens McLaren's complete defensive argument. The core problem exposed by the hidden footage is that the FIA now possesses physical and visual evidence that the McLaren cars were running below the legal plank limit in a way that was consistent, predictable, and mechanically sustained throughout the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The footage shows the inspectors demonstrating how the plank surfaces on both McLaren cars displayed the same smooth erosion pattern across the measured zones. This uniformity allowed the FIA to conclude that the cars spent prolonged periods at a ride height lower than permitted. What makes this problem so severe is that it eliminates any argument about isolated moments or accidental contact. The behavior captured in the footage reflects a continuous mechanical condition. The footage also exposes that the FIA carried out multiple repeated measurements on Piastri's plank, and every reading returned values, such as 8.74 millimeters, which remain well below the regulation. The inspectors explained on camera that the tools were calibrated to 1/1000th of a millimeter, and that each measurement was taken slowly and methodically. This repeatability is what undermines McLaren's defense most heavily. The numbers do not show drift or variation, and the footage confirms that the testing process followed strict procedural standards. The problem therefore becomes not whether the car dipped below the limit, but why it happened in a way that appears structurally embedded in its setup. A deeper issue emerges when the footage captures the FIA comparing Norris's readings with those taken from Piastri's car. The inspectors state clearly that Norris recorded 8.88 millimeters and that this value repeated with the same consistency. When two cars driven in different scenarios produce nearly identical illegal measurements, the FIA interprets this as evidence of a systemic problem. The footage shows the officials pointing out this exact pattern and highlighting how the erosion matched perfectly across both vehicles. This is the detail that begins to dismantle McLaren's foundational argument because it proves the issue is not driver-specific or incident-based. The footage further reveals how the FIA linked the uniform wear to the broader engineering conditions of the weekend. Officials explained that the lack of long practice sessions and the colder night temperatures meant that the aerodynamic load on the car increased beyond the team's estimates. However, the inspectors clarify that teams must anticipate these conditions, especially when configuring ride height. The footage shows McLaren engineers listening as the FIA describes how the cars compressed in a stable rhythm throughout the race. This explanation transforms the problem from a one-moment mistake into a predictable physical outcome arising from the setup strategy. The defense weakens because the footage shows that this behavior could have been modeled and mitigated. Another layer of the problem becomes evident when the FIA describes in the footage how the erosion pattern shows no sign of sudden impact or curb strike. The inspectors explain that when a car hits a curb aggressively, the plank suffers an irregular scrape or a sharp cut. In both McLaren cars, the wear was smooth, continuous, and evenly distributed. The footage captures these explanations while showing the planks up close, which strengthens the FIA's position. This visual evidence aligns perfectly with the numerical data and demonstrates that the cars were simply too low for the conditions. Is this alignment between data and imagery that threatens McLaren's defense most? The final problem highlighted by the footage is how clearly the FIA articulates that the violation was effectively unavoidable with the configuration McLaren selected. The inspectors state that the ride height chosen for the weekend created a scenario where environmental factors such as colder air and reduced tire pressure would push the cars below the legal threshold. The video shows McLaren engineers absorbing this explanation in silence. This moment captures the essence of the problem. The breach was not a matter of bad fortune, but a predictable mechanical consequence of the setup. The footage makes this conclusion unavoidable and forms the foundation of the FIA's strengthened case against the team. The engineering pressure inside McLaren escalated sharply once the hidden footage revealed how the FIA connected the illegal plank measurements to the team's ride height modeling. In the video, the inspectors explained in detail how the aerodynamic load at the Las Vegas night race increased the vertical compression on both cars, causing them to settle lower than expected. This explanation made it clear that the issue did not stem from an unpredictable event, but from a structural misjudgment in how McLaren anticipated the circuit conditions. The technological weight of this mistake carried enormous implications because it meant the team entered the race with a configuration that left no buffer for temperature changes or surface irregularities. Another critical moment in the footage showed the FIA describing how teams are expected to plan for incomplete practice data. Officials explained that when long runs are missing, the standard engineering response is to increase safety margins rather than reduce them. The footage captured the McLaren engineers listening closely as the FIA emphasized this principle. Their reactions suggested an understanding that the team had relied too heavily on simulations rather than real track validation. This placed McLaren in a position where their predictive models could not accurately reflect the extreme cold of a Las Vegas night. The footage made it clear that this modeling gap was central to the uniform where seen on both planks. The footage further revealed how the FIA highlighted the influence of tire pressure loss on ride height. The inspectors explained that cooler night temperatures reduce pressure inside the tires, lowering their diameter and bringing the floor closer to the asphalt. This effect is widely understood in engineering circles and must be incorporated into pre-race calculations. The video showed the FIA demonstrating this behavior using data overlays and explaining how both McLaren cars would have experienced the same compression cycle. The consistency of this effect provided a direct link to the identical wear patterns measured in the inspection room. This segment of the footage raised questions about whether McLaren underestimated the scale of this predictable temperature drop.